I've been at the University of Tennessee for only 8 months, but I owe a tremendous thank you to the Haslam family for creating the Haslam Chair in Supply Chain Analytics. I'm honored to be the inaugural chair. It's been really a wonderful opportunity to be here. For the previous 20 years, I lived in Boston, and I've actually loved Knoxville. It's been fantastic. The one thing I've had to learn is how to be less aggressive as a driver. And really, when the right lane is wide open, but everyone's in the left lane, I'm having a bit of a tough time. But I just look to the left and I'm okay. I work in the area of analytics. This is the hot area in business right now, and it's going to be that way for the next 15 years. So this is the Smarter Planet from IBM. Google creating all sorts of things that know what we think and can beat us in our own games, right? Getting packages faster. Analytics has taken off for two reasons. One is the growth of computing power, and the other is the availability of data. And this allows us to solve problems that we couldn't solve before. So what we can now do is globally optimize problems and find solutions which weren't previously available to us. But we don't do this in a vacuum. We solve problems with people, process, and technology. And that's why the Department of Business Analytics and Statistics exists within the Haslam College of Business. We put all of these pieces together to actually solve these problems. So to make this concrete, let's think about new product development. New product development is the lifeblood of any company. More than 15% of most companies' revenues come from products that are less than 3 years old. So getting this right, getting introduction right, is really critical. But what we're going to see here is that managing new products is fraught with risk. And it turns out that less than half of all new products are successful, right? And we needed tens, if not hundreds of products that we initially designed, tried to put to market to get even to that 2 point, right? So this is an incredibly hard problem. Maybe you have sort of product failures from the past that you think about. Maybe you're like the one person that's like, why isn't there new Coke? You know? But if you think about sort of new Coke, Crystal Pepsi, the Apple Newton, I'm sure some of you are like, hey, that's just an old iPad. That was a failure. But you know, there's lots of these products. So now we're going to talk about a product, the Apple Watch. I sure hope this product is successful. I like this product. I wear this product. But we don't yet know. But this is going to be our motivating example to think about what do we see when we're designing new products. So right now, I think this watch looks pretty simple, right? Looks okay. Now it looks less simple. So this is an exploded view of this. And the key point from our perspective is that every one of these different parts, so the battery, the different wireless modules, all of these things have more than one supplier that could provide that part. So we actually have to pick which supplier we choose. So the archetypal research problem here is that you have two vendors that are identical in every way. Vendor A costs $1.10 and delivers in 3 days. Vendor B is cheaper at $1 but takes 100 days. Which of these two vendors do you pick? And why do you care? And the fundamental reason why we care, if we sort of think about it, it's like a high hurdle event where we're going to look at every one of these vendors and say, is your quality good enough? And if it is, you cross a hurdle. Is your delivery performance good enough? Then you cross a hurdle. So we let every one of these vendors jump over their hurdles, right? If a vendor falls, they don't get to continue. We look at the ones that actually made it, that completed the race. We're like, congratulations. Which of you was the cheapest? That's the one we're going to pick, right? And we do that for every vendor, for every part that we're going to source, and we do it one at a time sequentially, right? So this is the sort of existing practice, and it's not good enough. It's not good enough because of inventory. So I like to think of inventory like the water in a bathtub. We have supply that's coming in, right? That's coming in through the faucet. We have demand that drains through the tub, through the, you would think I'd remember. Thank you. Through the drain. I can catch up with those minutes. If we don't properly drain the product, we don't have demand, then we have an enormous Olympic-sized pool of water that we can't get rid of. And we can really only rely at this point on like evaporation, and that takes a long time and is costly. So we don't want to do that. Instead, what we want to do is reimagine suppliers. We want to now think not just in terms of minimizing cost, but we want to think in terms of sort of both cost and time. So what is it about fast suppliers that's good? What is it about slow suppliers that's good? And we need our framework to take into account both sets. We can mathematically show that there are conditions under which sort of a faster supplier that is more expensive actually outperforms the slower suppliers, reduces the amount of inventory we need, reduces the amount of cost in the supply chain. So it's no longer just the case of picking the cheapest supplier. In fact, if we look at this graph here, the red shows the range over which a supplier that is not the cheapest supplier or the most expensive, but some other supplier, is the optimal choice. And the cost reduction here is quite significant. And this is something that certainly would not happen if we followed an extreme point of just fast, just slow. What we find is that what we want to do is synchronize the supply chain. We want to choose a set of fast suppliers or a set of slow suppliers. We want our supplier base to be internally consistent. And by so doing, we dramatically reduce the cost of the overall delivery of that supply chain. What it allows us to do is allows us to go from one existing solution to a new optimal solution. It gets us out of our box and puts us on a new frontier. That's really what analytics allows us to do. Thank you very much for attending my talk.